Hey, this is MassX with a brand new Yu Yu Hakusho Slugfest video, and we had somebody I was expecting to arrive, but not how it did. We got it in Festival Divination, and who I'm speaking about, of course, is Mukuro, not in a banner, which is going to make a lot of people not happy. There's pros and cons to this, but in general, the banner itself, in my opinion, is a better deal unless you are absolutely luckier than you ever have been before in your life. You have basically a 0.05% chance to pull the character and shards, basically. And based on how many shards you get, that percentage changes. But in the end, yeah, even though you get some really good stuff in this as a whole, it's, yeah. If you are saving for Mukuro, sorry. They do have a part of this, which is Festival Wheel, which if you do spend real money, you get chances to spin the Festival Wheel. And with that, you have a very small chance of pulling different amounts of the event tickets, which will allow you to buy one copy of the Mukuro, not from doing the Festival Divination. But again, you're most likely going to pull 9 at a time unless you're incredibly lucky. I think I had a 99 once. I've seen 2 people pull 199, as you can see on the screen. Nobody pulled 99.99 yet. So I can't say I can recommend this for most, even if you're a spender or a light spender at best. You can spend your in-game currency. I believe you can get 7 a day. You'll get 1 free one, so that's 8. It lasts a week. That's going to be, it is what it is. If you get lucky, great. But yeah, I was kind of bummed not to see this on a normal banner. So with that though, let's talk about the character, because it will end up coming out in a banner at some other point. It should. When I got it previously on the prior version I played, it did not come in this Festival Divination. So let's go ahead and at least take a look at the character. The character itself is a good character, but the irony of this is a character that my personal tastes on how I play, I actually don't like some of the things the character does. The skill for the character, Mukuro gains different skills in different positions, which is very interesting. And she does work with a couple different team comps, which is interesting because we'll talk about this in a second when we get to it. There really isn't a lot of frozen options, so you can imagine who you would use if you wanted to take advantage of that, but you don't necessarily need that to make this character effective. But when Mukuro is in the front row, deals 240% physical damage to the highest attack enemy companion, which is nice because you're going to be able to single out that target. If the target is frozen, like I was just speaking about before, the skill will be cast 1 additional time, granting 1 stack of undispensable sheer blade for the remainder of the battle, stacking up to 3 times. We'll talk about sheer blade in a second. So yeah, Mukuro doesn't do frozen, so you have to have somebody to complement the character. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about this character. When Mukuro is in the back row, the final damage of each attack is increased by 50%, which is very good. Each attack deals 176% physical damage plus true damage equal to 10% of the target's lost HP to a line of enemies, and it's capped at 10% of Mukuro's max HP, granting her 1 stack of undispensable raging waves for the remainder of battle, stacking up to 3 times. Mukuro loses all stacks of sheer blade and raging waves whenever an allied companion is defeated. Now, let's talk about these two, Raging Waves and Sheer Blade. Sheer Blade, each stack grants 20% final damage reduction, causing all enemy characters in the same line as that of the caster's counterpart in the opposing team to deal 20% reduced final damage. Good. Raging Waves, each stack increases skill damage dealt by 25%, reducing the effectiveness of healing and shields on all enemy characters in the same line as that of the caster's counterpart in the opposing team by 30%. Damage taken grants 200 skill points. The later effect cannot occur more than 10 times. And it's kind of obvious, at least to me, Raging Waves is just awesome. Sheer Blade is good, but Raging Waves I just love. And of course, Frozen, you cannot cast skills or restore skill points. The basic attack with this character, attack an enemy, dealing 100% physical damage and gaining 1 battle will, increasing allied skill companions' block rate by 10%, increases final damage by 20%, and all effects last 1 turn, stacking up to 3 times. Now at 3, if the attack is not a critical hit, an additional basic attack that restores battle will be launched. This effect triggers up to 2 times each time the skill is triggered. So I like that actually a lot, especially with a basic attack. And at 5, if the attack is a critical hit, 1 additional skill will be cast, which is awesome. So yeah, this character can do some damage. The passive, you get that increased damage dealt and damage reduction by 16% at 2, and at 4, basic stats increased by 24%. Now the Awaken one. Each time a turn ends, if Mukuro is in the front row, all allied companions will have 1 control effect removed from them and gain Water Wall for 1 turn. They'll gain Ice Wall for 1 turn if 2 or more enemy companions are frozen. So you can see the frozen mechanic is built into another area now. Water Wall resists incoming damage equal to 30% of HP lasts 1 turn, which is nice. And Ice Wall resists incoming damage equal to 100% HP, increases final crit resist rate by 150%, and that lasts 1 turn. Similarly, Ice Wall kicks ass. And of course, Frozen, we don't need to read that again. Now at 3, when an even number of allied skill companions are deployed, casting a secret skill instantly grants Mukuro 1 battle will and causes her to swap places with the companion in the same line. This effect triggers up to 1 time per turn. If the said companion is a skill companion, they'll gain maximum stacks of Sheer Blade and Raging Waves for 1 turn. When an odd number of allied skill companions are deployed, casting a secret skill instantly grants Mukuro 1 battle will and causes the companion in the same line to instantly cast 1 skill. If the said companion is a skill companion, they'll gain maximum stacks of Sheer Blade and Raging Waves. So this is awesome. I just don't like the movement of the character, because sometimes that can mess up how your game flow is with a particular character. But it's still pretty cool what this character's awakens do. At 5, battle will cost of secret skills is reduced by 1. Great. Gaining Sheer Blade and Raging Waves for the first time increases skill damage by 100%, which is great. For the remainder of the battle, any enemy character's HP dropping to below 50% grants 1 stack of Sheer Blade or Raging Waves and triggers up to 3 times. Sheer Blade, each stack grants 20% final damage reduction, as we've talked about before, causing all enemy characters in the same line as that of the caster's counterpart in the opposing team to deal 20% reduced final damage, which is great. And of course, Raging Waves, as we've spoken about, each stack increases skill damage dealt by 25%, reducing the effectiveness of healing and shields on all enemy characters in the same line, which I absolutely love that, as that of the caster's counterpart in the enemy's team by 30%. Damage taken grants 200 skill points. The later effect cannot occur more than 10 times. Now, for the secret skill, Grape Shot Blast restores 500 skill points at the cost of 3 battle will. Attacks all enemies, dealing 126% physical damage. Each stack of Sheer Blade and Raging Waves provides 20% final damage and 20% final damage, respectively. Applies 1 stack of Undispensable, Irresistible, Mire of Memory to the caster's enemy counterpart. And we've already talked about Sheer Blade and Raging Waves, but Mire of Memory. At the end of each turn, Mukuro casts 1 skill on all enemies having the status effect. Enemy characters affected by Mire of Memory will be defeated if they take more than 35% of max HP in the damage in 1 attack from Mukuro. Yeah, that's sick. That alone is crazy. And then we have the secret skill passive. Mukuro increases her crit rate by 25%, which is stellar because she needs to crit, and becomes immune to control effects. Even better. Her basic attacks reduce the block rate and defense of targets hit by an additional 20% for the remainder of the turn, up to 2 times per turn. Allied skill companions gain 20% ignore defense. Also great. Mukuro deals 60% increased final damage when in the back row. When in the front row, Mukuro skill companions final damage reduction and damage boost by 25% at the end of each turn. This effect triggers up to 4 times. So yeah, she's a beast, okay? I mean, she is a beast. I just don't like the movement and the different stuff it can do up, back. I get very, set when I have a team, and I don't like to see that movement. I'm a huge non-fan of characters that ever have like multiple skills that when they trigger, you don't know which one and things like that. I always stay away from characters like that. Now, of course, it teams up with the SP Hiei, which you would expect to get those extra bonuses, which is fine. Now, of course, you could imagine somebody like Toya is a nice pickup to put alongside Mukuro, because remember, you only can have up to 3 SPs, and because Toya is actually a pretty darn decent character and is going to give you that frozen, so has a lot of utility with Mukuro. Now, Shigure and Kirin do work well with Mukuro, which you would expect, but aren't necessary for any particular build. They play to a lot of the strengths of Mukuro, reducing a lot of damage, the follow-ups, etc. So they're not bad. But previously, when I had some builds back in the prior version, I did use SP Hiei and did not do a full trauma build. Instead, I used Mukuro, I used Hiei, and I did use Toya and SP Kurama. I can't remember who the other 2 characters I used, and it was pretty effective. It was more of a secondary team. I did not have them fully blasted up, fully loaded 5 awaken, and it did pretty good. Of course, in this game you have one main team, and everybody ends up gravitating to, of course, the meta build, which I have previously showcased, and then you kind of have some fun with your other 2 teams. And I did find that a pure trauma team was a little bit more consistent than using kind of a mishmash more with Mukuro. But what I'm going to do now is, since this character is already dropped, I'm not going to be maxing this character out by no means because of how it's coming. I have it at 2. If I get lucky, I may be able to get it to 3. We'll see. And then I'm going to go ahead and put some builds together to test, and then I'll circle back around with what I found to be the most effective, barring the use of the characters I featured in my prior video that dealt strictly with that team, with SP, Yusuke, Ryzen, etc. I'm taking those completely off the shelf and now going to just be basically focusing on videos without any of those characters. And I'll be giving you one that's a full trauma team. I'm going to give you one that is a little bit more manipulative and control based with Mukuro. And that's what you're going to be seeing coming from me to give you guys some ideas as you start planning out how you want to move forward. But again, Mukuro's a solid character, not one of my main pickups, because as much as I like some of the skills with this character, some just don't mesh with how I like to play. But that's no knock on the character. That's just my personal preference. But in the end, it's a shame that they released it like this. I would have much rather seen it in the banner. So hopefully we'll see that sooner than later. With that, as always, please like and subscribe. It helps a lot. Have a great day.